Good afternoon. You're supposed to say good afternoon. Thank you. Hi. It is my distinct pleasure to welcome families, students, faculty, staff, and community members to Family Weekend 2018. My name is Nicole Holliday, and I'm an assistant professor in the Department of Linguistics and Cognitive Science, and I will be your MC for today's Ideas at Pomona program, the family edition of Ideas at Pomona, that is. The Ideas at Pomona program curates exciting new and groundbreaking ideas from around campus and the greater Pomona community to ignite discussion, share insights, and highlight exciting research. This afternoon, we have 5 remarkable speakers who will each speak about a topic that challenges and inspires them. First, I would like to welcome President Gabrielle Starr, a highly regarded scholar of English literature whose work reaches into neuroscience and the arts. President Starr took office as the 10th president of Pomona College in July 2017. Recipient of the Guggenheim Fellowship and author of 2 books, President Starr offers a compelling voice for working across academic disciplines to spark intellectual discovery. Her research looks closely at the brain through the use of fMRI to help get to the heart of how people respond to paintings, music, and other forms of art. Her talk today is entitled Beauty and Creativity. Please join me in welcoming President Starr to the stage.
Thank you. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Family Weekend. I've been told I stay inside this space. I will try and do my best. Welcome to Pomona again. And today I'm going to ask you to do a few things along with me. I'm going to ask you to listen to some things, look at some things, imagine some things, and I hope you have a little piece of paper and a pencil because you're going to need them, or some other way of jotting down some ideas. But first thing I want you to do is think about a ball. Yes, that's a ping pong ball. It's white. Refresh your memory, it's hard, it bounces. It's about 1 inch across. And what I'm going to ask you to do is to think hard about that ball and come up with as many uses for that ping pong ball other than playing ping pong. And they have to be actual uses, like you can't say, oh, I'm going to make a ping pong ball time machine if you don't have a way of using the ping pong ball to do it, okay? So get out your pencil, it's not a test. I'm going to give you a little bit of time and go. It's not a test, just relax. Okay, pencils down. Now you know how your kids feel every week. Now, ping pong ball may or may not have been inspiring. Sometimes when we think about creativity, we always think big things that we can create or explore or discover. Extraordinary works of art, like this Van Gogh up here, imagining the moments after the Big Bang, coming up with a way to get to Mars by jettisoning a pack and opening up the hatch and exploding the side door, and Aditya Sood is a Pomona alum, and The Martian is a great movie. But creativity is also every day, right? It happens in low resource places where people are not able to find food, but they manage to find food easily, but they manage to do it to support their families. It happens in boardrooms where people are creatively solving problems. It happens in classrooms. It happens at the kitchen table. So what is creativity and how can we engage it and build it? Creativity happens overnight, and it happens actually in part in your brain. So one dimension of creativity is called divergent thinking. And divergent thinking is when you can put together a bunch of different kinds of lateral, random, encompassing approaches. You are openly curious when you're seeking a solution. You come up with as many different kinds of things as possible. That's what the ping pong ball exercise is trying to get at. Can you think divergently? Now, older theory about creativity suggested that you had to really focus your attention, work hard, just think about that ping pong ball, and as many ideas would come. Newer research suggests that there's actually a balance of things that happen when you are thinking divergently. And you're able to focus on the object really hard, or the problem, or the concern, or the condition, but you also are doing lots of spontaneous other processes. And so part of the question is, how can that actually happen in the brain? Because it's a really interesting question. Now, there are a set of regions in the human brain known as the default mode network. They were discovered in the late 1990s by Marcus Raichle and Deborah Gounard, largely working at WashU. These regions are associated with mind wandering, with imagining others' thoughts and experiences, and also the sense of self. And that's just a really interesting connection, that the machinery that we use to think about ourselves is the same machinery we use to think about others. Thanks to work by folks like Roger Beatty and Matthias Benedek, we now know that this network is crucial in creativity as well. Now, if the older model suggested that divergent thinking was really a personality trait, that there were certain people who were really good at it and others that weren't, we wonder if a newer model of creativity, one that understands that there are spontaneous processes and really focused processes, actually could be taught or induced or somehow liberated. That's why your kids are in college, right? So, if a ping pong ball isn't all that inspiring, maybe something beautiful really is. And this is one of my favorite pieces. It's just, for me, simple and entrancing. And I started some work a few years ago with colleagues at NYU. The ones here that are most involved are Ed Versel and Nava Rubin and a young man named Isaac Purton, where we were starting to think about what happens in your brain when you're having powerful aesthetic experiences. Not just I kind of like it, but really things that make your mind pop. Now, it turns out the default mode network is actively involved when it comes to these experiences, not the everyday beauty, what we have up here as these numbers 1, 2, and 3, where I like it a little bit more, I like it a little bit more, but when you like it a lot, the default mode network engages. So you see a little graph at the bottom of the screen here on this one, and oh good, just over here, where you see what normally happens in the default mode network when you focus on anything outside of you. Even when you look at a painting, and a really attractive painting, is the network shuts down because it's focused on a task. It's not focused doing these mind-wandering tasks or anything else. It's like, let me look at this thing outside. But what happens with powerful aesthetic experiences is that's the first thing that happens. I'm focusing on this, and the next thing that happens is pop. This experience rebounds, and we interpreted this as this almost magical moment in which what's going on outside of you and what's going on inside of you are somehow matched. And if the painting is speaking to you, you know exactly how to listen to it. So the question for us, and Isaac was the young man who started us really thinking about this, was, is there a link between that and creativity? What if an experience of the beautiful could help unlock creativity? This is a really important question. Ed did some work for NASA where they're thinking about long-term space travel when you're in nothing but blackness for as long as it takes to get there. What do you need? Maybe you need something like this. So, I'm going to ask you to listen to something. There's a poem that is 19th century English poet called the Woodlark, Gerard Hopkins, called The Woodlark, and basically what he's imagining is, what would it be like to be a bird, songbird, flying over fields of poppies and wheat? Today, the sky is 2 and 2, with white strokes and strains of the blue, round a ring, and while I'll sail, must listen. I sing. The skylark is my cousin, and he is known to men more than me. When the cry within says go on, then I go on till the longing is less and the good gone. But down drop if it says stop to the all the leaf of the treetop, and after that, off the bough. I am so glad, so very glad that I do think there is not to be had anywhere any more joy to be in. The blue wheat acres underneath, and the braided ear breaks out of the sheath. The ear and milk lush the sash, and crushed silk poppies aflash. The blood gush, blade gash, flame rash, rud red, bud shelling or broad shed, tatter, tassel, tangle, and dingle-a-dangle, dandy-hung, dainty head. And down the furrow high, sun, spurge, and ox-eye, and lace-leaved, lovely, foam-tuft fumetry. Through the velvety wind V-wing to the nest nook, I balance and buoy with a sweet joy of a sweet joy, sweet of a sweet, sweet joy. That poem does it for me every time. Every time. It doesn't do it for everybody, and that's the other thing we discovered, that it's completely unpredictable for any individual what is going to make it pop for you. So, I want to try something else. I want you for a minute to close your eyes and imagine the single most beautiful thing you have ever seen in your life. I want you to put yourself in that space, standing or sitting or lying or looking or listening, and take yourself there. I'll tell you when to stop. Now, I'm going to give you a challenge. When you leave here, I want you to take with you that index card, that piece of paper. I want you to wander around over the next few days. Go into the art museum, look at the buildings, look at what you see, look at the faces, think about the ideas. And when you get a moment where you feel like something has happened, try that divergent thinking task again. Try the ping pong ball again and see how much further you get. And for fun, test your partner or your friend who's here with you and have an incredible competitive moment, because that's what I always like to end with my own husband and family. So thank you for coming. It's really great to see you and a pleasure to be with you.
Thank you, President Starr, for giving us more motivation to look at beautiful things. Her research is so exciting because I think it represents the sort of interdisciplinarity and intellectual curiosity that we hope to cultivate among our students here at Pomona. Next, I'm going to introduce proud Pomona parent Cam Neely. Cam Neely has been president of the Boston Bruins since 2010, becoming the 8th man to hold that position in the history of the franchise. He oversees all of the club's hockey and business operations with the goal of leading the Bruins to the forefront of the National Hockey League. A former NHL player himself, the Bruins retired his number in 2004, and he was elected into the Hockey Hall of Fame in 2005. Neely was honored with the league's Lester Patrick Award in 2010 for his outstanding service to hockey in the United States. He currently serves on the board of directors of the Hockey Hall of Fame, and his talk today is entitled, How Life's Challenges Shape Your Future. Please join me in welcoming Cam Neely.
Thank you very much. It's certainly an honor to be here today. I want to thank the Family Weekend Planning Committee for inviting me to speak, especially Tanya Johnson. All those things that I did in my hockey career, I don't think would pass me standing in front of you at Pomona and speaking for a kid that barely got through high school. So I'm proud to be here. It's a great school that my son absolutely loves. He's a freshman. We're thrilled that he's here. I just want to give a little bit of story of my life and how I ended up where I did. At 17, I was living in the Vancouver area, Vancouver, British Columbia, just outside the city. Got an invitation to go play in Portland, Oregon, in the Western Hockey League. Just happened to be my draft year. That following June, I got drafted in the first round by the Vancouver Canucks. And that September, went to their training camp, made their club. So at 18 years old, I had no idea what I was doing, how I was doing it, but I was in the National Hockey League. I played there for 3 years. On my 21st birthday, I got traded to the Boston Bruins. Now here's where my life had a major turn. The Vancouver Canucks were not as good as the Boston Bruins at that time. In my third year in Vancouver, I wasn't playing as well as I would have liked. And when you get traded, you think, okay, that team doesn't want you. But my father was a very positive thinker, and he got me thinking, well, one team may not have wanted you, but think about the one team that did want you. So I went to Boston. I knew that I had to prove to myself, prove to my teammates, and prove to the ownership that I could play for them and play well for them and stay in the NHL and stay on the Boston Bruins. Well, I ended up playing 10 years for the Bruins. Everything on the ice was going extremely well for me. My career really kind of took off. The team was having great seasons. We went to the finals twice in 1988 and 1990. Unfortunately, lost both times to the powerhouse Edmonton Oilers and Wayne Gretzky's teams. Off the ice is where things started to turn for myself and my siblings. Both my parents were diagnosed with cancer in 1986 within 6 months of each other. Unfortunately, they both lost their battle with the disease. But being a professional athlete gave me an opportunity to try and help others that were dealing with cancer in their own family. So established the Cam Neely Foundation for Cancer Care and the Neely House, which provides comfort and support and hope for cancer patients and their families. I'm proud to say in 25 years or so, we've raised over $30 million and helped thousands of patients and families. One of our main events is a comedy show that my good friend Dennis Leary hosts. And I really found that laughter sometimes is the best medicine. So for 23 years, Dennis and a bunch of wonderful, great comedians donate their time, and we have an annual comedy show in Boston. As the years started ticking off with my playing career, I was a very physical player. I would rather go through somebody than around someone, and that took its toll on my body. At 26 years old, I had a very, very serious thigh injury, had to miss almost a full calendar year of hockey. That turned into a bad knee injury. But during those times, I said to myself, I'm going to put the work in. I'm going to put the effort in. I'm going to do the rehab. I'm going to do whatever it takes to get back to playing hockey. It's what I love to do, but I had to put the work, the time, the effort in which I did. I got back to playing. Unfortunately, at 31, I ended up having to retire because of a hip injury. And I had married my wife, Paulina, in August of that year in 96. September, I was told I had to retire. So I had no idea what I was going to do, how I was going to do it. But I knew that if I had the mindset of a player outside of hockey into the real world, so to speak, and in the business community, I felt if I put that same effort in, I would find something that I enjoyed doing. My personal meaning of success is if you love what you do, that's a successful person. It's not about the paycheck. It's not about what you have materialistically. It's about what you love to do. So I recommend all you students in here I know it takes time, but really try to find something you love to do, and I guarantee you'll be successful. I was given a gift to be able to play hockey. And as it was mentioned, I had my number retired. I was elected into the Hockey Hall of Fame. I had 3 50-goal seasons. My last one was in 44 games, but it took a lot of hard work and effort. You students here have a gift. You have a gift to be able to be into Pomona, this great college. Now it's up to you what you want to do with that gift, how hard you want to apply yourself. I know it takes a lot of hard work, a lot of late night studying, a lot of trials and tribulations, moving away from home, meeting new people, trying to figure things out. But it's really about the effort that you put in, and the hard work that you put in will give you more with that gift that you've already been given. And that's something I think is extremely important for our youth today, is the work ethic. I see it a lot when we have people come in and apply for jobs at the Boston Bruins. It's the expectations as opposed to, what do you need me to do, where can I start, and when do you want me here? It's the expectations that everybody seems to have nowadays. I don't want to generalize, but that's my feeling. It's not the I'm going to put on my boots and strap up and get to work. For me, being an athlete, you could have all the skill in the world. I played with many players that had more skill than I did, that didn't have the careers that I did, for one reason, and that reason was work ethic. They didn't want to put the time and the effort in because it's not easy. If it was easy, everybody would do it. It's not easy. You got to work hard. You got to get up. You got to get into the gym. You got to get into the classroom. You got to spend the late night studying. These are things that I recognized over the course of my 13-year career about what it really truly makes, or what you really truly have to do to become successful. I've got a lot of friends that are very successful in the business community, and yes, they have a gift, but they have the work ethic. And that's what my wife and I try to instill in our son Jack and our daughter Ava is, you have an opportunity that some people don't. The only way to take advantage of that opportunity is to work at what you're doing. And it shows in the work. The people see it, your family sees it, teachers see it, eventually your bosses will see it. And that's the important thing that we're trying to share with our family is put your head down, do the work, and be proud of what you're doing. Because it's not easy out there, as you all know, but your gift and your work ethic will certainly give you an opportunity that most don't have. So I want to thank you for the opportunity to speak with you today. I appreciate your time, and have a great family weekend. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Cam, for sharing that inspirational message. It's not every day that you get to hear from a literal Hall of Famer. All right, our next speaker, Lauren Versel, has decades of experience as a writer, director, editor, producer, and financier. She founded Lucky Monkey Pictures in 2004 and has produced many award-winning films, including City Island, Arbitrage, Clueless, director Amy Heckerling's Vamps, Richard Lavagrence's adaptation of The Last 5 Years. I promise I'm a linguistics professor. Starring Anna Kendrick, and Broadway legend James Lapine's Custody, starring Viola Davis, Hayden Panettiere, and Catalina Sandino Moreno. Her current projects include a new movie with Cher and a television series, The Resistance Project. Her talk today, entitled How Long Can You Hang? How I Spent 3 Decades as a Woman in the Film Industry, could not possibly be more timely. Please welcome Lauren Versel.
Hi, I didn't produce Clueless. I wish I had, but I produced Amy's movie Vamps. Anyway, good afternoon, Sagehens, Claremont community, parents, and friends. I want to thank President Starr and Pomona College for inviting me to join this amazing group today. Special shout out to my son, Dylan Bresnan, who told me very emphatically when we toured this college that he would be here, ride or die. When I was 5, we lived in Los Angeles near the beach. My kindergarten teacher, Mrs. Shamani, wrote on my report card, "Lauren is very creative, but bossy." So obviously, I thought the only 2 jobs for me were political dictator or film director. A few years later, we moved to Washington, D.C. Growing up in the turbulent political atmosphere of the 70s, with my dad working at the Pentagon, I settled on film director. It never crossed my mind that gender could be an issue. I was raised in the 70s, and I knew we'd come a long way, baby. When I said I planned on directing at my first internship in film, I was told, you can be a script supervisor or an editor. Editors are like cooking. Women make good editors. You look in the fridge, see what's there, and make dinner. My first shot at running the show came on a U.S. government film about wind energy. I was the editor. The director was blind, and he and Grover, his seeing eye dog, would show up to my edit room daily. Grover would curl up under my Steenbeck editing machine while Doug listened to the film, and I described what the shots looked like. The film was well received, so I gave up that secure job, took the next leap, and moved to New York City. I co-wrote, produced, and directed a play, The Barbie Project. Did you know that the Barbie doll was based on Lily, a German gag gift girly doll for men, brought to this country by Mattel founder Ruth Handler, who coincidentally had a daughter named Barbie and a son named Ken? I worked for PBS and CBS and left another secure job when I was accepted to the American Film Institute in Los Angeles as a directing fellow. AFI wasn't kidding when they called it fellow. I directed MTV music videos, but my only shot at directing a film was to become a writer-director. Back then, we had little chance of TV either. Our mentors were few, and even if a woman got a film made, they rarely were able to keep making them. So I became a screenwriter while trying to get my first feature done and wrote 25 films for Hollywood over the next 15 years, but none of them got made. No one really reads unproduced screenplays. It's kind of like writing poetry on toilet paper. I came so close so many times, I almost forgot to have a life. Sometime around 2000, I found myself happily married to Bob Bresnan, an extraordinary man. I was mother to my daughter, Bettina, and my son, Dylan, living back in New York, writing Al Capone's life story for Miramax. After 3 years of revisions, they didn't make the film. I decided to try producing. I started my company, Lucky Monkey Pictures. I tried to get another writer's screenplay made. 2 years went by and no such luck. That was it. I was throwing in the towel. But on 9/11, as we dropped off our first graders at school, I met Maria Teresa Arita, a mother who had moved from London the day before. We lived through that scary time and became friends. I told her how discouraged I was that after 20 years of trying to make it in the movie business and having had success as an editor and a writer, but none as a director, and how I tried producing, but even though I was the girl who was always called on to collect money and buy a gift whenever a teacher was leaving, and even though I'd sold the most Girl Scout cookies in my troop, I probably needed more skills like an MBA or a law school degree to produce. So I was giving up and going back to watercolor painting. Well, Maria speaks 5 languages, and she mostly lives on a plane. She told me I wasn't allowed to throw 20 years of experience in the bin. She told me to come to Argentina with her, and we would make movies, and it would be so easy. She lied. But we clicked our heels together, and Lucky Monkey made our first feature film, City Island, starring Andy Garcia, Juliana Margulies, Ezra Miller, and Alan Arkin. It was an award-winning crowd pleaser, and since 2009, Lucky Monkey has made 8 feature films in the US and several more in Argentina with our sister company, Travessia. I was able to make some really, really great films. All of my different experiences gave me a body of knowledge that was tremendously valuable. I love stories. The stories we tell are what define us as a culture. They offer us lessons, and they preserve our history. Stories can make us laugh or cry and move us. Human beings have always told stories, even when we lived in caves. Long ago in Hollywood, someone told me, "Look, kid, it's all about how long can you hang." So what does that mean? My husband tells me life isn't about the successes and failures, it's about the path we lead. For some people, they're going to be catapulted into the center of their career maelstrom very quickly. For others, and certainly for me, it's the fact that I just didn't give up. I found a nook or a cranny or a way to go to keep at it. I worked day jobs to be able to continue to make things. I bought the rights to books and plays instead of handbags. I kept at it, even though I doubted what I was doing was enough. I kept going when the piece wasn't what I thought it could be, or when the box office results were low, or 1,000 different things, like finally getting to work with Amy Heckerling, the writer-director who gave the world Clueless, Look Who's Talking, and Fast Times at Ridgemont High, and having our film, Vamps, open on Hurricane Sandy. Why did it always feel different than what I imagined it would? And when would I make it? Well, I can look back from here and tell you, if you don't give up, someday there will be a body of work, and the times you live in might catch up with you. In film schools today, half the students are women. This year at the Sundance Film Festival, Robert Redford talked about the present as a kind of tipping point over too much male dominance. Redford also said, change is going to come. This period of change is bringing forth more opportunities for women and women in film to have their voices heard and do their own projects. The reality is, a different energy is coming from the Time's Up and Me Too movements. At the annual Oscar nominees luncheon, Academy President John Bailey told this year's crop of nominees, the fossilized bedrock of many of Hollywood's worst abuses are being jackhammered into oblivion. Even so, the Center for the Study of Women in Television and Film put out the following depressing statistics for 2017. Although women account for 52% of moviegoers, on the top 100 grossing films of 2017, women represented 8% of directors, 10% of writers, 2% of cinematographers, 24% of producers, 14% of editors. Catherine Bigelow is the only woman to ever win the Academy Award for Best Director. Only 5 women have ever been nominated: Lena Wertmuller, Jane Campion, Sofia Coppola, Bigelow, and this year, Greta Gerwig. So the truth is, most of the screen stories we see in this country are being funneled through the male perspective. In the top 100 films of 2016, females comprised 29% of protagonists. It's not that it's a bad perspective, but there are other points of view out there. The good news is things are changing. My mother was a trailblazer for her time. When I was 7, she got a job despite my father's outrage. He felt like her working outside the home diminished him. She never missed getting dinner on the table, and he learned to live with it. For her, it was a big deal to have her own money, even if it was used to buy a mink coat and a dining room set. Most of my friends had stay-at-home moms. As a result, my generation did not have many female role models who had jobs. One by one, we've been changing things, and each of us had our own battles to fight so we could move forward. And we have seen changes. Women started getting entry-level jobs and moving up. In my industry, we became script supervisors, crew members, editors, and writers. We reached the glass ceiling because few of us were allowed to become directors or producers. What was our perception of leadership? Who was there to show us how to have a career and a family too? If a woman stepped back to have a baby, oftentimes she could not get her place back in the workforce. What stops women from moving forward? I asked my friend Joan Day, a corporate director, civic leader, and investor, her opinion. She said, part of it is gender roles and part of it is power. How can power be defined? One way is political power. Who defines what's fair and what's not? 2 is economics. If you are not a capital provider, meaning an investor, or you don't have direct influence on the capital, then there can only be so much power. So we need more women investors in the media. The media is so important. The media tells a story of who we are, what's acceptable, and who we want to be. If we can't see that women are complex human beings with fully formed public roles outside of being a sex object, then there are no role models. Without the role models, how are women figuring out how to do it? We are witnessing an enormous outpouring of women coming together to call for change in a powerful way at this time in history. It's very exciting and hopeful. We need to not get distracted and stay on message. We need to give specific language to retrain old ideas. A whole generation of men were told that no means yes. In this hyper-polarized world, it's hard to have the more nuanced discussion that needs to take place. We need to teach our daughters how to use their voices and be heard, and teach our sons how to listen. That's why it's important for women to tell their stories on screens and to work in this industry. Women must mentor those coming up. The future can look really bright. It's an exciting moment where important stories that haven't been told will be told, and this benefits our culture. There are so many heroes and heroines we've yet to meet. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Lauren, for being a powerful voice in Hollywood and for hanging in there and paving the way to make it a little bit better, a little bit easier for all of us going forward. That's a really powerful message. Our next speaker, Christopher Darden, became a household name and face in 1995 after he was named prosecuting case manager in the O.J. Simpson trial due to his extensive legal expertise. Today, Darden is a Los Angeles-based practicing attorney, author, and lecturer. His first book, In Contempt, spent 14 weeks as #1 on the New York Times bestseller list. He has appeared on The Oprah Show, Dr. Oz, Today with Megyn Kelly, CNN, Fox News, and Court TV. He is a frequent legal commentator on CNBC, CNN, and NBC, and has made guest appearances on The Tonight Show with Jay Leno and The Howard Stern Show. Please join me in welcoming Christopher Darden, who will be giving a talk entitled Rising Above the Court of Public Opinion.
Well, good afternoon. How lucky are you to be here with me today? But thank you for coming. It's always a thrill for me to come out to Pomona College because I have a family connection here. I'm not supposed to mention his name or say that he's a junior, but I think you know who I'm talking about. Well, my category today, my discussion is about rising above the court of public opinion because if you ever want to meet someone who's been dragged through the press, who's been, well, the most terrible things possible could have been said about that person, I'm your guy. You only have to Google me and go back to 1995 to see, in 1994, to see the kinds of things that people said about me. Terrible things. And terrible things in this country, in a country where, sure, we have a First Amendment, but should people be allowed to just say any nasty, vile thing about you? Should people be allowed to drag your reputation through the mud without any factual support for the kinds of things that they say about you? They still write about me 25 years later. 50% of what they write is true. The other 50% is an exaggeration or an outright lie. And part of the problem is that nobody can really tell what is true and what isn't. But nonetheless, people form public opinions. And that's me back in 1995. I was an adjunct professor teaching a class. Look at that brother. Militant, strong, powerful, committed, political, supporting the black agenda. But more important than anything, I was just there minding my own business, living my life. I wasn't looking for an opportunity to be in the public sphere. I wasn't looking for an opportunity to have my name mentioned in the paper. I was doing me and just living my life. And I thought trying to make a difference in the lives of my students. But at the time, I was also a prosecutor in the LA County District Attorney's Office. I tried and prosecuted all kinds of crimes, from gang crimes, homicides, sexual assaults, political figures. I'm just living my life, minding my own business. And look how slim I am. Almost pretty. And so one day I'm sitting there watching basketball, minding my own business. I'd heard about some double murder out in Brentwood, and some guy had done this. And I remember sitting there thinking, I'm glad that's not my problem. I'm glad that's not my case. And after some guy did that, then the guy did that. And it's like the car was coming right at me, right through my television set. And then I saw that. The guy who'd done that other thing, there were a lot of people who thought, hey, that guy didn't do it. Free that guy. For the first time for me, what the issue that was brought home to me was that there was a racial divide in this country. And I was a black prosecutor in the agency that was prosecuting O.J. Simpson, and I was a black man. And so which side of the divide was I going to be on? I was going to be on the side for justice. That didn't sit well in the court of public opinion. At first, everything was great. Look at her smiling at me. That's not love in her eyes. And everything was good. And then one day, it was January 13, 1995, when we had to argue an issue, and it was an issue about race, an issue about an epithet. They call it the N-word now. If you were in 1995, you never heard the term N-word until that day. I was there to argue that racial epithets shouldn't be included in this trial, and that a jury consisting primarily of African-American jurors might become impassioned if they were allowed to hear testimony about a white police officer who used racial epithets. Of course, there was a counter-argument by the defense. It was the day before Martin Luther King Day weekend, and the newspapers went crazy. For the first time, millions of Americans were able to watch and see two African-American lawyers argue about race. And the issue of race became an issue of race wars in the trial. And then the battle begun. Well, as the weeks went on, I became disgusted with the process because we'd lost focus. The focus should have been on these two dead people, but instead the focus was race and celebrity. And that racial divide continued, and I continued to be on the wrong side because I was on the side of justice and other people on the side of race. And one day I was cited for contempt because I got angry at the injustice that I was witnessing. And in the court of public opinion, I was wrong. Because of the argument about race, there were those who said I was no longer allowed or included in the black community. I had my black card revoked. And when I became angry that day because I didn't like the way the victims were being portrayed or the way the trial was proceeding, I was called angry. So now I was an angry black man without a community. Some people called me an apologist for a racist. The LA Times gathered a group of black writers, and they wrote a big article about Darden. And they called me the worst things one black man could ever call another. And in the court of public opinion, that's what I became. And then one day this happened. Let me give you a hint. If you're ever a lawyer in a courtroom, don't do this. Take it from me. And so now I was an angry black man and an apologist for racists, not welcome in my community. And this is the court of public opinion. And then the issue became whether or not the gloves fit. If they didn't, you know what you have to do. If the gloves don't fit, you got to acquit. And so the issue for me became, well, is Darden even a capable lawyer? And so now I'm an apologist for a racist and angry. And maybe even an incapable lawyer. And if all of that wasn't bad enough, guess what happened? I love that picture. That's my favorite picture from the trial. I just thought I would share it with you. But guess what happened? All of this stuff, this court of public opinion took a toll on me, took a toll on my family. My daughter walked the streets in this state, in this city, and didn't want to admit she was my daughter because people were so angry with me. And to top it all off, damn, we lost. So now I'm a loser on top of that. And in the court of public opinion, I am all of these things. And if you've ever been ridiculed, harassed, downgraded, if people have ever spoken bad about you and tried to trash you and drag you down and kill your spirit, You know, you can't give up. You got two choices. You can run or you can rise. They celebrated my loss, but it wasn't just a loss for me, it was a loss for him too. And it was a loss for justice. I sat there for weeks. What do I do? How do I take this? Hurt by my experience. And then one day I started to look into me and remember who I was. I was Eddie and Jean's son, and they taught me to be a strong black man. With a little introspection and self-examination, I remembered who I was and why I became a lawyer in the first place. And I stopped focusing on all the negative and all the bad things people said about me, and I started to look at the positive things. That's what it was. That's what I had. That was me. And people were writing and saying these things all the time, but I never noticed. I was always focusing on the bad stuff. You can run or you can rise up. I took what they said about me, and I used it to my advantage. Here, Ellis Coase, a distinguished intellectual, wrote a book about the Darden dilemma. That's me. I'm Darden in that dilemma. And it's a book about the dilemmas black prosecutors face prosecuting nothing but other people that look like them. And then I took my case on the road, and there I am on Newsweek magazine. Look at me, suave. I took those negatives and I turned them into positives. And after I thought it was all over, something happened. 20 years later, they went and got a guy that looks just like me, they said. Sterling K. Brown. Now he's getting like every award imaginable. I should be getting a percentage, but I'm not. But in the court of public opinion 20 years ago, I was this and that and all of these bad things, and now I am winning Emmys. I'm winning Emmys. You can't succumb to the court of public opinion. You got to remember that it took you 10 seconds or me an hour to make a mistake, but that mistake cannot dictate every other moment for the rest of my life, and the same applies to you. We're all going to make mistakes. We have to learn from them and try to rise above them. You come at me, you punch at me, I'm going to punch back. You talk bad about me, I'm going to make some money. I took all those bad things and all of those negatives, the fact that that judge held me in contempt and that some people in my community found me contemptible, I flipped it on them. I took the court of public opinion, I put it in a book, and I wrote a #1 New York Times bestseller. That's what you do. That's what you do with all the negative energy and all of those bad things and all of that ill will. You take it, you mold it, you manipulate it, you flip it, and you make something positive of it. Don't worry about what people say. IDGAF. They're not paying your bills. They're not supporting your children. They're not driving you to the doctor. What other people say about you doesn't matter. It's what you say. It's what's within you. I got 13 seconds left of a 12-minute talk. You never know how much time you have. Let me take my last 7 seconds to say to my son, I love you. Because you never know. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that, Christopher. I was telling him backstage that I teach about the O.J. Simpson trial, an introduction to linguistics, because I am a sociolinguist who studies African American English. And while he was caught up in all that storm, it provides a useful historical lesson if you happen to be a social scientist. I also really appreciated his message. I feel like he channeled Beyonce, always stay gracious, best revenge is your paper, which is words to live by indeed. All right, so our final speaker of the evening, Stavros Lambrinidis, has been the European Union Special Representative for Human Rights since 2012, in charge of the EU's human rights foreign policy. In 2011, he was the Foreign Affairs Minister of Greece. From 2004 to 2011, he was a member and vice president of the European Parliament. He began his career as an attorney at Wilmer, Cutler, and Pickering in Washington, D.C., and he received his BA from Amherst College in 1984 and his JD from Yale in 1988, where he was the managing editor of the Yale Journal of International Law. His talk today is entitled, "What's So Scary About Smart Girls and Other Fun Questions About Human Rights." Please welcome Stavros Lambrinidis.
Hello, good afternoon. In the past few years, I have traveled to over 50 countries around the world, from China to Cuba to Iran to the United States to South Africa to Russia, you name it, with one goal, which is to promote security, stability, social justice through human rights. This is what I have learned. Human rights have always been an anathema to oppressors, of course, but increasingly also to populists, to strongmen who view tolerance, inclusiveness, the rule of law, the fundamental values upon human rights are based, as an impediment to their ability to bend the will of their people, of their regions, of their institutions to their own, as an impediment to their ability to get rid of all checks and balances, which are the fundamental building blocks of any democracy. These bad guys are not content anymore in oppressing domestically. They are trying to export their influence in the regions and in the world. And they're exporting that influence also through exporting their bad narratives and practices on human rights. So we need to understand and to respond to those narratives. Today, I will address 4 of the most prevalent criticisms of human rights. I will do so in the form of questions, and I will try to answer them. Now, the first thing that people tell me around the world when they want to continue violating rights is that human rights are a luxury. Human rights, in an age where we have to fight terrorists, where we have to build our economies, are a luxury. So the question really is, are human rights a luxury we cannot afford? And I answer that question with another question, and the question I ask them is, what's so scary about smart girls? Why did Boko Haram in Nigeria abduct 300 girls from school a few years ago instead of bombing one more army barracks that they're particularly good at doing? Why did the Taliban in Pakistan plant a bullet in Malala Yousafzai's head? She got the Nobel Prize, eventually she survived, when she was advocating as a young girl for girls' education. In Iraq, why did ISIS abduct, rape, enslave, forcefully marry hundreds of Yazidi girls? What's so scary about smart girls? And the answer is, at least for me, that smart girls tend to become educated girls, and educated girls become empowered women, and empowered women change entirely the balance of power in any society. And the last thing that terrorists want is empowered societies. They want societies with big black holes of power that then they can fill in with their hatred and with their violence. So you want to fight terrorists? Educate girls. And boys, you want to fight terrorists? Look at what terrorists hate. They tell us with every attack. They hate freedom of expression. They hate freedom of religion and belief. They showed us that in Paris with their attacks. You want to fight terrorists? Protect freedom of expression. Don't imprison your human rights activists that criticize you for the way that you are waging that war on terror. If you do so, the terrorists win. So human rights are not soft policy. Human rights are hardcore foreign policy. That's what I answer to the first question. The second thing they tell me very often is, but why are you here talking about gays and lesbians? Look at the public opinion in our country. 90% of our people hate them. Why are you talking about the elimination of the death penalty? Our people love the death penalty. Why are you raising unpopular issues, poisoning our beautiful, otherwise, relationships? So I guess the second question is, are human rights unpopular? The answer, unfortunately, is yes. By design, almost. Certainly unpopular to those who oppress, no to those who are being oppressed, but by design, if you think about it, yes. Because human rights are by definition not protecting people I like or people who are like me. They are protecting people I don't like and people who are not like me. Take the example of freedom of speech. First Amendment, US Constitution, Universal Declaration of Human Rights. Every constitution in the world includes it as a fundamental principle. Now, if all of us in this beautiful hall agreed with what I said, would anyone have ever come up with the idea, oh, wait a second, we need to have freedom of speech in our constitutions? No. We would have agreed. We just hold hands, sing Kumbaya, go have some wine and cheese afterwards. If there's wine and cheese, I don't know, I'm sorry, maybe there isn't. But I don't need... Cheap Pomona. No wine and cheese. Maybe they have it, I don't know. Gabby, sorry, I'm sure you do. No, when do you need a freedom of expression provision? You need it when you disagree with each other. And especially when one of the two has the power to silence the other one. That's what you needed. So you needed to protect the weaker, the minority opinion. So how do we reconcile this problem in our democracies? Having human rights, although the majority of the people many times may not like it. Well, because we understand, not just in our democracies all over the world, that unless we're able to protect the weakest, our whole social system collapses. Let me put it another way. You know what? We are all minorities. At some point in our lives or the other, we are all minorities. We may be a majority in a particular situation, but we're not in every situation. In this room, you may be a majority in terms of your ethnicity or your color, but in that majority, you may be a minority in terms of your sexual orientation, your disability, your religious belief. If you decide, because you're a majority at one instance, to repress everyone who don't like, guess what? At some point in your life, you're going to be the person that is not liked. Think of it another way. It's a little bit like the canary in a coal mine. You know how coal miners used to carry a canary in? Because it was more sensitive to all the fumes. And when it would suffocate, they would know to run out. That's exactly the same situation. Your most unpopular of any minority is the canary. If you see it suffocating, you know the door has opened. If you don't do something about it, those fumes one day will come to you. Third thing that they tell me. They tell me that, you know what, human rights is a Western thing. The West imposed it on the rest. It was an understanding, cultural understanding of the West, of colonialists, of imperialists, that was developed at some point, and unless the same understanding happens in our societies, human rights do not apply elsewhere. So it's a good question. Is the West imposing this culture on the rest? It's a powerful one, perhaps the most powerful anti-human rights argument, because it's intended to poison the feelings of people around the world, even oppressed people, because even oppressed people sometimes will feel a particular dislike for the past colonialist or the past imperialist. I submit to you that this is a fake argument and a very dangerous one. It's dangerous because if you believe in it, human rights collapse. Everyone can pick and choose in their country according to how they determine that the culture accepts or doesn't accept. So, I don't like blacks in my country, they're not protected. I don't like whites in my country, they're not protected. My culture doesn't protect them. But fundamentally it's false, because human rights has never been, ever, a battle between different cultures or religions or ideologies or political system. It has been a battle within them. It has always been the universal language of the powerless. In any culture, in any country, in any society, against the cultural relativism of the powerful in that same culture or society. A wife being abused by her husband in Los Angeles or in Athens or in Beijing or in Johannesburg or in Brasilia, she will probably never tell you, oh, please stay away, you cannot intervene on my behalf, human rights are not universal, let me be abused. She's the powerless. The husband doing the abusing, he will often tell you, oh, stay away, we have special family values here, you don't understand. He's the powerful. Human rights have never been a battle between cultures, but within them. But within them. Now, does that mean that culture doesn't matter? Of course not. It does. And we have, when we talk about human rights, need to be sensitive to this. We are not all the same. But to recognize that is not to say that some cultures may not apply human rights and others may. It is to say that all human rights have to be applied with the sensitivity that is required to make them effective in different cultures. It also means, and this is a sensitive point and a tricky one, it means that you have the right not to like me. Human rights doesn't tell you how to feel. They tell you, like any law does, how to act. You may not like Greeks. I regret that. I would try to change your mind. But you have the right not to like Greeks. What you don't have the right to do is to kick me because I'm Greek and discriminate me because I'm Greek. People can understand that. Sometimes they can't understand when you tell them how to feel. Now, dear friends, the last thing that people say when everything else failed to me is, who are you to talk? Who are you to talk? Look at racism in Europe. Look at xenophobia. Look at violence against immigrants. Look at your right-wing parties gaining power in different places. You have all these human rights challenges. Who are you to talk? And you know what? That's true. We have major human rights challenges in Europe, and you have very serious human rights challenges in the United States. No one is perfect in human rights. But the fact that no one is perfect does not mean that therefore everyone is equally imperfect. Putting that aside, what is the real litmus test for human rights? If it's not perfection, I submit to you it is, do you have those institutions in place that force you not to shove your imperfections under the carpet? Do you have independent courts that can try a policeman and convict if they violate human rights? Do you have an independent parliament or a Congress where people can agree or disagree on human rights that can fight it out? Do you have a free and independent civil society that can criticize you or support you, but it's up to them, not up to you? Do you have colleges and universities like the remarkable Pomona College that allows for every different view to be expressed and to be fought out freely so that the mind broadens? For every single issue to be addressed, are you allowing as a government for your feet to be kept on the coals? That's the litmus test. And many countries around the world who ask me, who are you to talk, do not have those things in place. And now we come full circle from the beginning of this talk, where I told you that strong men and populists try to bend their people's will and try to eliminate all checks and balances to their advantage. Dear friends, I have, maybe this is the last conclusion from my visits around the world, where people have shown the courage to stand up for human rights against authoritarian and populist leaders. Populists have found it very hard to advance. But where moderate forces have retreated in front of intolerance and hatred, where populists have managed to take even legitimate concerns of the population and weaponize them against minorities to find scapegoats, in those countries authoritarianism eventually always takes place. Or if not that, then naked majoritarianism. And finally, it is not just the autocratic leaders who do this, it's you and me. In societies that are polarized and split, the biggest danger is that we turn against each other, that we do not consider violating the rights of the other a problem because we hate him or we hate her. And that is what the populists pray for societies to split down those lines. And we must resist. We must resist. It is not just Malala Yousafzai in Pakistan who's a human rights defender. It's not just those Yazidi girls in Iraq who are human rights defenders. You and you and you can be human rights defenders and defend those institutions. And if you do so, if you feel so, then I have hope. Thank you, Gabrielle Starr. Thank you, Pomona College, for this opportunity.
Thank you so much for that powerful talk, Stavros, and reminding us that human rights are never an option. I would like to bring all of our speakers back out here for one more round of applause. Back out, speakers. All right. It's been an honor to host this first-time family weekend event, and I'd now like to invite all of the Pomona parents and family members to make their way across the quad to Edmund's Ballroom for a welcome reception. It will have wine and cheese. We're not that cheap. Thank you to those of you who joined us from the other Claremont colleges and from the larger community, and we hope that you enjoy the rest of your weekend and you are able to make a lot of great memories here with your students at Pomona. Thank you.